Now, besides this local state, you can also make the entire module local. You can make it namespaced, as it's called, to make sure that multiple modules are clearly separated from each other. Now, why might you want to do that? Well, as your application grows, you could of course have name clashes. You might be using the same getter or the same action name in different modules of the same store. It's not the case here, but if, for whatever reason, we had a login action here in the counter module, that would be clashing with the login action we got in our main store. Because at the moment, besides the state, everything is merged together into one object, basically. So in bigger apps, you could have such clashes, and to avoid that, you can namespace modules. You do that by adding an extra option inside of your object here, and that's the namespaced option, which you can set to true. If you add namespaced true, you tell Vuex that now the entire module, and not just the state, should be kind of detached from the rest of the store. If you do that though, you will now notice that our getters and our action dispatchers no longer work. Because now these actions and getters are no longer available on the main store. Instead, now we have to access them by specifying the correct namespace. And how does it work and what is the namespace? Well, the namespace is this key you assigned for adding the module in this module's object to your store. So in my case, numbers. That's the namespace of the counter module. And we now need to use this namespace to work with actions, getters, and so on inside of this module. Now here's how that will work. In favorite value, I access my normalized counter getter. Now you don't access .normalized counter, but instead a special property name, which contains a special character, and which you hence have to access with the square bracket notation. You pass in a string here, your property name as a string, and this property name is now made up of the old property name, so normalized counter, but prior to that, in front of that, you have your namespace. So in my case, numbers. So you have numbers and then a slash in between. Might look strange, but this is now the property name of the normalized counter. Namespace, slash, and then your getter name, action name, whatever it is. In this case, it's a getter. And that's why we now see at least one counter here. It's this normalized counter, which I'm outputting like this. Now, if you are using map getters, you pass a first argument to map getters, which is your namespace, in this case numbers, and then thereafter you still add your array with the getter names as before. So with that, if we save this, the second counter is back as well. So namespace as a first argument, second argument is then still your array of getters inside of that namespace. And the same, of course, for the other parts. Map actions takes the namespace as a first argument, and then your action names as before. And in app view, here where I dispatch manually actually, the type is now numbers/increase. So again, namespace slash and then the action name. With that, all the buttons work again now, and now we're using this namespacing feature to detach our module and to make sure that we don't have any name clashes, which we of course don't have here, but which you in bigger apps definitely could have. And with that, we're merging a module with our main store. We still have some global state in there, the authentication state, but we can absolutely combine it like this, and we're even namespacing our module to make sure that we don't accidentally trigger an action inside of this module when we actually wanted to trigger a global action, for example.